This is Personal Injury Court.
Good day, everyone. This is the matter of Davidson versus Campbell. From the materials that you all have submitted to this court, it's my understanding, Ms. Davidson, that you are suing Ms. Campbell for injuries that you sustained while cleaning her house. You're asking this court to award you $15,000 for your medical expenses and $65,000 for emotional distress for a total award that you seek of $80,000. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Ms. Campbell, your position on this is she's supposed to clean and her injuries are her fault.
Yes, Your Honor.
So let's get into the legal sauce. Ms. Davidson, how did you come to clean Ms. Campbell's house?
Well, I was previously working for another family, the Cushers, and they recommended me to the Campbell family. So I've been working for the Campbell family for about 3 years.
So you're pretty much a regular at their house.
I am, Your Honor. I do the bathrooms, I change the sheets, I start the laundry. Unfortunately, I also look after the children sometimes. I mop the floors. I do everything, everything a housekeeper should do.
So, Ms. Campbell, this is a full service that Ms. Davidson is offering you, right?
It is, Your Honor.
And she did a good job up until this day, right?
She does a good job, yes, Your Honor.
So, Ms. Davidson, you're cleaning the house. What happened?
Well, on this particular day, Miss Vivian had asked me to change the contact paper in the kitchen. I decided to go all the way up to the top. I'm doing a great job. I skip lunch.
You're trying to be thorough.
I am thorough because I am very good at what I do. So I continue working and I get to a high shelf and I see that there are some cookies.
She said she couldn't go on the high shelf.
She has always told me, mi casa, su casa.
You thought you had the run of the house while you cleaned.
Of course,
okay.
Absolutely. So because I had worked through lunch, I got a cookie and I ate one cookie.
You were hungry.
I was starving.
Okay.
It tasted a little bit strange.
Now, in the past,
yes,
have you gone into the fridge and gotten a little something to eat while you clean, that kind of stuff?
Of course.
And was that okay?
Absolutely.
You welcome that kind of thing?
The fridge is fine, Your Honor. Becoming a cabinet climber, I didn't expect.
These cookies, was it in a cookie jar, a plate? What was it up there on the shelf?
Yes, Your Honor. It was in a glass jar.
I see you've brought a jar of cookies.
Yes, sir.
That's not the jar of cookies, right?
It is not, Your Honor.
Okay, but it was like
I'm
that.
a law-abiding citizen.
So you eat the cookie?
I eat a total of 3.
Okay.
And
you were really hungry then.
I was
okay.
very hungry. And so I start feeling a little funny, a little lightheaded, but I didn't know if it was because I hadn't had lunch, right?
Okay.
So I kind of hold on to the shelf that I was working on, and the next thing I know, I'm nauseous, I'm sweating, I'm dizzy, and I fall off the stool.
The stool she said she couldn't go on.
Excruciating pain. I have never said that.
So you fall off the stool onto the floor?
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor. And so I actually have to crawl on my hands and knees to get to my phone to call my son, who is luckily at home.
Were you hurt?
I was in excruciating pain. I was also very nauseous, again, like I said, and I ended up throwing up.
And you didn't know what was going on?
I didn't know if I was having a stroke.
Call 911.
I had no idea what was going on.
Now you've got someone cleaning your house.
Yes,
they
sir.
They fall off a stool.
Yes, Your Honor.
Hurt themselves. That's got to be of some concern to you. Right?
Your Honor, here.
Yes or no? It's some concern, right?
Concerned.
Why is it so hard?
It's hard, Your Honor, because for the 3 years that she's worked with my husband and I,
yes, ma'am,
she was very clear from the beginning she cannot clean anything up high.
Okay.
She was afraid to go up on ladders.
She told you she was afraid of heights?
3 years ago.
And so why would you have her clean above just floor level then?
This is how it happened, Your Honor.
Okay, tell me.
All that she was supposed to do, there were drawers. The contact paper needed to be changed in those, and on the first 2 levels of shelves, okay? No one sees those shelves up high. Why would I care if they have contact paper up there?
I was doing a good job. I was going above and beyond. I was trying to make you happy.
Ms. Davidson,
gone high before.
Ms. Davidson, you actually submitted a photograph of the shelves in the kitchen, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, I see you've got your scooter. Is it okay for you to come over here and show me what we're looking at?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, could you do that for me? And Sheriff Matt, help her as much as you can.
It just might take me a
Take
little
your
bit.
time. Take your time.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. I'm going to have to back in.
So, Ms. Davidson, tell us what we're looking at here.
So this is the kitchen where I have cleaned for the past 3 years.
And Ms. Campbell, that's your kitchen.
It is my kitchen.
Those are your shelves.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Davidson, tell us what this photograph does.
And I'd also like to just point out that these are open shelves. So these are not closed cabinets. So everything visually you can see clearly.
Ms.
Levels of
Davidson,
shelves.
where did you find these cookies?
Right up here on the very top right-hand corner.
So on that top right-hand corner where the circle is, that's where you found these cookies.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you thought they were just ordinary cookies.
Absolutely.
That I
Yes, Your
keep
Honor.
on the very top.
And so how soon after you ate these cookies did you find yourself feeling faint and eventually fall?
I came down and went
All
up.
back up.
And down and went up. And then I had the third cookie. And about 15 minutes had passed. And that's when I knew something was very, very wrong. And I wasn't sure what it was. I wasn't sure if it was because I hadn't eaten or if perhaps I was having a stroke or some medical condition. But I didn't have time to really come down and react. I held on to the shelf and I fell.
So you fell off the stool
Yes, Your Honor.
onto the floor.
Yes, Your Honor.
And that's how you hurt your ankle.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may go back to your podium. Take your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor,
Yes, ma'am.
may I approach the screen?
Please,
Thank
please.
you.
Tell us about your house and your shelves.
As you can see, these are drawers, and then there are the open shelves. This row, right here. All she was supposed to do.
But she was trying to do a good job for you, right?
Yes, Your Honor, she apparently was. However, if she was that hungry, why did she keep going up for a cookie? Why didn't she eat her lunch?
Your Honor, because I was trying to finish, and so I thought if I had just a small snack, I could just keep going and finish the job.
So, Ms.
And
Campbell, you
Bam.
understand that, right? You understand she's trying to move this along, get your job done?
It just seems very odd to me, Your Honor, that she's never gone on a ladder, and all of a sudden this day,
You've
she
never
wants
asked me to go on a
My turn.
ladder.
She wants to do such a good job. She's way up here.
Now, listen,
in a
I must
cookie
say,
jar.
cookies and chips are my weakness. The reason I asked about the cookies and leaving them up there, not the cookies, the ones you ate,
Yes, Your
but
Honor.
the cookies, I would have eaten this whole jar.
But, Your Honor, would you climb, if you were afraid of heights, would
And
you
Matt, I
climb
know
up
you would have
there?
eaten 2 of these jars.
Yes, sir.
I put them where no one could reach them.
Now, how is she supposed to know that they're not just cookies?
Your Honor,
There was no label. There was no label
There
on
wasn't
there.
a label
What
on
do
it.
you think
Skull
the
and
label's gonna
crossbones.
say?
There was nothing on there that said
Hello?
that I couldn't have the cookie.
Ladies, talk to me. Talk to
I'm
me.
sorry, Your
Your
Honor.
Honor.
Yes, ma'am. So how's she supposed to know, Miss Campbell,
She
that
didn't need
these
to know
cookies have
this
things
thing.
in them?
There's other food down there. See, look at the other cookies over there. She could have eaten those cookies.
But did you ever say to her, similar to Simba saying, "Don't go into the dark country"? Did you ever say to her, "Don't go to those cookies"?
I never actually said to her, because she's afraid of ladders, don't go up
I
the
don't know
ladder.
why you keep
and eat
saying
the
that.
top-
That's not true.
Because that's what you said.
So, Miss Davidson, after you hit the floor, what happened?
So when I hit the floor, and then I called my son, and luckily for us, he was home.
Oh, come on. If it were that serious, you would have called 911.
He was able to come right away, and he took me to the emergency room.
And this is your son you brought to court today?
Yes, it is.
Sir, would you stand, please, and come to the podium?
Yes, Your Honor.
For the record, tell me your name.
My name is Brian Davidson.
So, Mr. Davidson, what do you remember about this?
Well, my mom called me in the middle of the day. Immediately, as soon as I answered the phone, I knew something was wrong. She did not sound like herself.
Did you think your mom was high?
At the start, I did not. The only thing I could tell on the phone was that she was just having a hard time pronouncing her words. Like she might have been out of breath or something.
Did you know whether she was injured or not?
Towards the end of the call, she told me that she had fallen and she'd hurt her ankle and that I needed to come over and help. And then once I got there, I walked inside and I found her on the floor in the kitchen.
Was she distraught?
She was. She was crying. She was in pain. She was slow moving.
That had
Which
to
is
be
why
hard
she
to
should
see
have
your
called
mom like
911.
that.
Yeah, it was very hard. As soon as I walked in, I almost started crying right then and there.
At this point, your mom didn't really have any idea as to why she had fallen, right?
No, she really had no idea what was going on.
So did you
all
go to the
she-
hospital with her?
I did. I picked her up, I put her in the car, and I drove her to the hospital.
Did she look like she was high?
Her eyes were glossy. So at that point, I didn't know for sure.
Did she make you do a munchie stop off so she could deal with it?
No, Your Honor, no. But I was pretty sure she was high at the moment.
And what happened at the hospital?
They did tests, they did x-rays, they did some blood work. I actually do have some evidence here with the test results, right?
Sheriff Matt, if you'll get this from Mr. Davidson. Thank you, sir. Okay, what I see here is a toxicology report.
Yes.
This reads positive for THC, which is the psychedelic agent in marijuana. This is what you got from the hospital.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, when you're making cookies at the Campbell home, do y'all usually put weed in them?
Sometimes we do. We have, you know.
So it's a party house.
We have, I wouldn't say it's a big party house, but we do have baking parties that
small
she's
party
aware
house.
of.
What?
So, Ms. Davidson, a little sensitive, but do you use marijuana?
Absolutely not. I never.
Did that day.
I don't.
Ms. Campbell, is this funny to you?
Your Honor, it's just funny.
This could have
because
been a
she's-
very bad situation.
It could have, but
Right?
if she's saying that it
And
was,
it's your weed cookies, right?
yes, they were.
Well, at least don't laugh about it.
I'm not
'cause
really
this is
laughing
a serious
at
matter.
the injury. I'm laughing at how she blows it out of proportion when she shouldn't have been on the ladder.
Now, Ms. Campbell, you see that this is a really out of the ordinary, bizarre experience for Ms. Davidson and for her son, actually.
I do, Your Honor. I see that. But it was equally as bizarre for me.
Well, you weren't high that day, though.
No.
Not that day.
See, so she knew. She acts like, oh, I didn't know about what was going on. She most certainly knew.
Well, wait a minute. Ms. Davidson, did you know that there was marijuana in this home?
Heavens, no. But after this, like
Not at all?
Oh.
Not at all.
Oh, that is
If I
untrue,
had
Your
known,
Honor.
I would have been out of there in a hot minute.
Ms. Campbell, you say that she should have known that there was marijuana in the home.
Yes, Your Honor.
Why do you say that?
Because the bong on the table in the den, she picks it up, she dusts under it.
What did you think that was?
Well, it looked like a vase.
No
it had
one's that
water in
naive.
it.
Okay, there weren't any flowers in the bong, right?
Exactly, and the water was dirty.
So if she doesn't know what a bong is, how's she to know there's marijuana in the house?
Because when my girlfriends come over and we do our baking, we have the cookbook out.
And what's it say?
Baking with pot.
Okay. Now, Ms. Davidson, baking with pot seems kind of obvious. Why wouldn't that clue you in?
Your Honor, there are new pots on the market that you bake in.
She has
That's
seen.
what I thought. I am not used to this
that is
type
So
of
you
crazy
thought it
thing I've
was
ever heard.
baking with pots, as in what
As
you
in a
put,
pot,
what Matt
yes.
likes beans and wieners,
You
what
don't
you cook
bake
beans
with
and
pots
wieners in?
anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
Your Honor, I can't believe that I've been poisoned. I've never done drugs ever.
Are you a little embarrassed?
I'm completely and utterly embarrassed. I can't imagine like telling my friends
Well, don't tell
that I've
them.
ingested illegal drugs from my employer. And not only that, like my injury, I am now out of a job. But my injury is
You're going through a
secondary
lot.
to what I'm feeling. Like, I can't believe this. And my son had to come, and now he knows that his mother did drugs.
you should have
So it sounds like it's, I mean, you suffered an injury. Obviously, you have a scooter here, but
Yes.
this is more about how this has banged up your how you feel about this.
Absolutely, Your Honor. I can't even express to you enough, like, what this has done to me.
But this is not about the torn ligaments in your ankle or your broken toe. It's about the emotional injury, isn't it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ladies, I think I've heard everything I need to hear. I'm ready to render my decision. Miss Davidson, you were just cleaning the house. You thought you were climbing up to put contact paper on the high shelf. You had no idea that you would be high and you're gonna fall.
Yes, Your Honor.
And Miss Campbell, you thought that she would stay in her lane and stay away from the weed cookies.
And
True?
not go high.
That's why
To
you
get
put them up high, right?
Right.
Well, when I analyzed the three legs of the personal injury case, wrong cause injury, there's obviously an injury. It obviously was caused by this fall and by the weed, but the wrong is shared. That is, you should have labeled or put those cookies away. They're not ordinary cookies. You, on the other hand, you saw them on an open shelf. You saw those cookies were up there and your lunch was in the refrigerator. You could have as easily and as quickly eaten your lunch rather than these cookies. So you bear some fault for your injuries, but not all of the fault. 51% of this, Ms. Campbell, is yours. 49% of this is yours, Ms. Davidson. That's why this court is not going to award you $80,000, because you have fault in your injuries. This court is going to award you $40,800, which is 51% of what you asked for. So I find in your favor and against Ms. Campbell. That is my verdict, and this matter is adjourned.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Hughes, it's my understanding you're suing on behalf of your daughter who sustained injuries when she was on the defendant Miss Evans' jungle gym. You're asking this court to award you $25,000 for your past medicals, $5,000 for your future medicals, $70,000 for your daughter's pain and suffering, for a total award of $100,000. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And Miss Evans, you believe had he been watching his daughter, we never would be here today. This is his fault, true?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Well, let's get into the legal sauce. Now, in looking at the court documents, you sound like a super dad. Tell me about you and your daughter.
Well, I live at the complex, and of course with my wife and my 4-year-old daughter. We've loved the complex since we moved in there.
That's your baby?
Yes, Your Honor, that is.
She's beautiful. I should have had girls.
When we were looking for places to live, we wanted a place that was going to offer a jungle gym and a park nearby, and this complex offered both those. My daughter absolutely loves to play in the jungle gym. It's the most favorite thing in the world to do, and when we were looking for places to live, it was one of our top considerations. We needed a place that had a park close by and offered a jungle gym. So it was perfect for us. We really loved the complex. As you can see, it's a fairly big-sized jungle gym. And there's a lot of kids there to play as well. So it's been a great place to live.
You sound like a pretty good dad.
I like to think I am.
So, Ms. Evans, tell me about your complex and tell me about the jungle gym, too.
It's a small community, 4 buildings, about 70 units. I live there myself now, and I treat...
So you actually live in the place that you work?
I'm a manager who lives on property.
Okay.
Tenants can reach me anytime, and I treat them like my family. We have a great social life at this complex, and a lot of it has to do with this central park area in the center of the complex that has park benches and a small playground nearby, picnic tables, barbecue grills.
Sounds like this jungle gym was kind of a crown jewel for this place.
Well, when I bought the property, Your Honor, I completely renovated the whole thing.
Okay, so you spent some money renovating this place.
I did, as a matter of fact. Yeah, I spent probably about $50,000 total. Wow. So now, yeah, we have brand new jungle gyms. The tenants and kids love it.
And that's what it looks like.
Exactly right.
And it didn't look like that when you got it.
Oh, it did not. It was very run down. The whole complex was in decline.
So, Mr. Hughes, tell me about the day that your daughter was injured. How did it happen?
Well, Your Honor, it was a beautiful sunny day outside, and my daughter came running to me and was just begging to go out to the playground and play in the jungle gym. So, of course, I can't say no to her. So just outside, my daughter can see the jungle gym from our complex. So she just took off running, Your Honor. She saw her friends there, and I could see off in the side some of the parents sitting down, so I went and joined some of the parents. And, we were having conversation, and I saw immediately my daughter just flew up to the top, and she was just playing, laughing, fun with the other kids. So she got about midway up, and she looks back at me, and she's like, "Daddy, Daddy." She's just screaming her little head off, looking at me, and I was like, "Hey, pumpkin." And so I was continuing my conversation with one of the parents, and I looked back over, and she was laughing, and then suddenly she just fell. She slipped off and just hit the ground really hard, Your Honor.
Your heart must have dropped.
My heart jumped through my throat. It was terrifying. So I immediately jumped off the bench. I went flying over to her. I wanted to pick her up, and I looked down, and she was just screaming.
I know this had to be scary.
Yelling. Loudest screams I've ever heard her scream, and she was holding her head.
Could you tell then that her head was injured?
Yeah, I saw blood, Your Honor. And I also see her arm, it looked like it was broken. And I was just trying to not lose it, but I started to get a little hysterical. I was starting to cry, and so I got down to the ground, and I wanted to hold her. I wanted to grab her and just squeeze her and just tell everything was gonna be okay.
Sure.
So one of the parents called the ambulance for us. And a few moments later, I was able to kind of gather myself. So I grabbed my cell phone, I called my wife, I told her we just had a horrible accident on the playground. And I told her she's gotta meet us at the hospital.
So, Ms. Hughes, what do you remember about this day? How did you know that something had gone wrong?
I was actually out front of the property working on some landscaping, and I got a call from one of my tenants that a child had fallen off one of the jungle gyms. So, I mean, this is a parent's worst nightmare. No one likes to get a call like this. I'm so sorry this has happened to this family. But I rushed over to address the situation. And, Your Honor, this is when I found out that the child had fallen from the higher level jungle gym meant for the older children. She should never have been up that high. And she should have been supervised. So I'm sorry, Your Honor. I really am sorry this has happened to this family, but...
When you say higher jungle gym and lower jungle gym, explain what you mean by that.
Well, Your Honor, there are two separate playgrounds. One for children ages 2 to 6 with a 4-foot jungle gym, and one for ages 7 and older with an 8-foot jungle gym. They are clearly separated, and there are signs with rules and regulations saying that there are two separate playgrounds.
This is one of your signs here?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Please ensure all children are playing in his or her designated play areas.
Okay.
Your Honor, it's a parent's responsibility to know how old their child is and to have them play in the right playground.
Mr. Evans, did you see or know about this sign?
The sign is nowhere to be seen. She says there's a sign, but it's so far away. There's absolutely no gates. There are no barriers blocking between the two. We play there almost every single day there, Your Honor. Kids play on both sides, all ages.
When you look at this playground, when your daughter was running up to the jungle gym, did you see there was a difference between the two?
Your Honor, it sits so far back that when you get up to the playground, as you can see in the picture, can you see a sign anywhere in that picture? The seating area is right there, Your Honor.
The sign is right there when you enter the park. It's clear, and other tenants seem to follow the rules just fine, Mr. Hughes.
But the pathway to the gym from our building, though, is straight ahead where there's no sign. So you'd have to walk all the way around the park.
Well, had you seen the sign, would you have kept her on the left side?
Of course I would have done it, but the sign's so far out of way, you can't see it. And where it said, coming from our end of the park, you can't see it.
His child is 4 years old. What parent lets their child climb up 8 feet in the air and isn't standing right next to them, Your Honor?
So, Ms. Evans, you believe this is not your fault? This happened on your jungle gym, on your property, at your complex.
Yes, Your Honor.
A child is badly injured. Your daughter, she broke her arm, you said?
Yes, Your Honor.
What other injuries did she have?
She sustained a concussion. But I stand by the point that you can see the two gyms. There's no barrier. There's no gate separating the two. You can't tell a little 4-year-old girl that she can't go from one to the other. If they're gonna make it to where they have to have a certain age play on one side and another age play on the other, then they should have a barrier there.
Well, why didn't you put up a barrier, Miss Evans?
Other tenants seem to follow the rules just fine. I mean, I can manage the property for my tenants, but I can't babysit all of their children.
Oh.
That is parenting 101.
You don't know me or my family.
Mr. Hughes, do not transfer your guilt onto me because your child got injured.
Mr. Hughes, your daughter had a concussion and a broken arm, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
To further understand the nature of her injuries, this court has consulted Dr. Eddie Richardson, who's going to talk about her injuries from a medical perspective. So, Sheriff Matt, will you get Dr. Richardson?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good morning, Doctor.
Your Honor,
Can you explain Tiffany's injuries?
Tiffany had 2 injuries. She had a comminuted fracture of the left forearm, and more importantly, she had a concussion to her brain. And actually, I brought a video along to show you exactly what a concussion looks like.
Okay.
This is the brain inside of the skull, and as you know, it's surrounded by our cerebral spinal fluid, which protects it. These are actually the neurons and the axons where we're actually thinking and how thoughts travel in our brain.
Okay.
And these cords show how it goes. That's a concussion, and you see how the trauma causes the brain to actually become bruised inside. That is the bruising.
So your brain slams against your skull?
Yes, and then it interrupts those neurons and you stop thinking for a period of time. That's the most important part, where the brain temporarily stops working.
Well, how do you treat a concussion?
A concussion is treated by rest is number one, particularly in children. And you do not want to stimulate the brain physically or mentally. That translates mentally as no tablets, no loud music, no light sensitivity, and brain rest, as well as physical activity.
Doctor, how long does a concussion take to heal?
Can take up to 3 weeks, sometimes 6 to 8 weeks, 3 months, and in rare cases, up to a year to completely heal.
Does that differ with children and adults in terms of time to heal and what happens in the future?
Yes, Your Honor, that can, because it's more dangerous in children because children can't tell you exactly what's going on with them. So therefore, you have to look for the symptoms. And what happens, how that shows up is they have problems with dizziness, with balance, they have problems with recall and memory, light and sound sensitivity, and more complexes. They can't explain to you what's going on, which may take longer for the healing period.
Even in a 4-year-old?
Yes, particularly in a 4-year-old. It makes it more serious in the younger the child is.
So,
Look
Mr.
what
Hughes,
you did to my 4-year-old. Look what you did to my little Tiffany. If she maintained the property as she should have maintained it, this wouldn't have happened. This has happened to multiple children, Your Honor.
Your Honor, my park is safe. It meets all safety standards.
Thank you, doctor. You are released.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Ms. Evans, you said you're all up to safety standards. How do you know that?
2 years ago, I completely renovated the whole playground. And so now we are up to date with all safety inspections and all safety requirements.
Yeah, you've submitted the inspection
This
report.
is the renovation report, yes, sir.
Okay.
All the equipment is adequate protective servicing. Surfacing materials have not deteriorated. There are not foreign objects in the mulch and the padding underneath the equipment.
Mr. Hughes, you said this has happened before. You brought a witness with you.
Yes, Your Honor.
This is Miss Josephine Littles. Miss Littles, if you would stand and come to the podium, tell me what you know about this whole thing.
Multiple residents made it clear to the complex that we had an issue with the safety because this has happened here before. My child fell from this same playground 6 months ago, and he was on the proper playground. My child fell and was hurt because there was not enough protective padding on the ground. And in fact, multiple residents signed a letter and sent it to the complex because this had been an issue. My child was injured. We didn't want more children getting injured.
Have you submitted that document to the court, or do you have that
I have
with
it
you?
right here.
All right, Sheriff Matt, if you'll get this document. This is the letter that you submitted to
Yes.
Miss Evans?
From myself and from multiple residents.
Dear Leslie Evans, my son was recently injured at our apartment's playground. I've talked to other parents and we agree that you should install more mulch and rubber padding under the jungle gym to make it safer. Thank you for your prompt attention to this matter. Josephine Littles, apartment B305.
But Your Honor, my complex and my playground meet all the state standards for safety.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, but meeting the bare legal minimum, even when a child has been injured, is not enough. And there is more you can clearly do to make it safer.
100% more. And listen to the attitude in her voice. There's no sympathy.
I am completely sympathetic. Please, I am a parent as well. And where I am possibly unsympathetic is with parents who don't take responsibility for their own children and then blame somebody else.
Ms. Littles.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. You may be seated. Ms. Evans, I can see that you're a serious businesswoman and a parent. Your sorry is heartfelt, but it doesn't relieve you of legal responsibility. I think I've heard enough, folks. I'm ready to render my decision. Folks, in every personal injury case, the plaintiff has to prove 3 things. They have to prove that the defendant was wrong and that the defendant's wrong caused your daughter's harm. Here, you've put up evidence that your daughter sustained severe injuries. Your daughter's 4 years old. You send her out to play, you think this is going to be another great daddy-daughter day, and it ends up in tragedy and almost a loss of life. I cannot imagine how frightened you were. You owned the apartment complex. You had an opportunity to make it safe. You've put up evidence that you complied with the code as to the padding, the mulch, how the jungle gym would look, whether it is safe according to the state and regulating agencies. The law looks at all of that, including the first responsibility, which is parental supervision. The law imposes upon you a responsibility to watch out for your children. And if you don't, then the law holds you responsible regardless of how severe the injury is. That's the first legal principle. The second legal principle that's tied to parental responsibility is open and obvious danger. Kids falling from a jungle gym, that's as open and obvious as the nose on my face. And the law requires parents and business owners to recognize an open and obvious danger. Here, you had your daughter out there, she never left your care. If it was a situation where you delivered her to a school, to a doctor, to a daycare, then you relinquished the responsibility to watch out for her. Despite how severe her injuries are, and frankly, they touch my heart because you're a great dad. But the law doesn't stop there. The law says that I look at their behavior, I look at yours, you had the responsibility, they complied with the law, you lose. I find in favor of the defendant. That's my final verdict, and this matter's adjourned. Mr. and Mrs. Rathmell, it's my understanding that you are suing for injuries that Mr. Rathmell sustained while you were on vacation at this spa. You all are asking this court to award you $40,000 for your past medical expenses, $5,000 for your future medical expenses, and $200,000 for pain and suffering, for a total award of $245,000, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Clarke, you're here representing Lux Days Resort and Spa, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you believe that had they followed the directions that they were given, they never would have been injured?
Yes, Your Honor, wholeheartedly.
Well, let's get into the legal sauce. Mr. and Mrs. Rathmell, how did you all get to choose Lux Days Resort and Spa?
Well, it's the first spot that he took me when we honeymooned. So it was pretty romantic of him to kind of take me back, actually. And we enjoyed it. It was about 10 years ago, a decade ago, but it was fantastic.
We had a great experience at that time. I know it was young love, but that young love is still going on now, so.
I met John during a blind date. My best friend set us up. I was not looking forward to seeing anybody, but this guy here kind of schmoozed me over.
I'm romantic like that.
Romance is beautiful.
Yes, sir. This young lady left her medical field to come support my business, which has grown immensely because of her. And so I said, hey, you know, it's time to do something nice.
Gladly.
So, Mrs. Rathmell, you've got some medical training.
Yeah, I have about 8 years as a nurse, but I gave all that up for this guy. I mean, we're running our own company, so he kind of needed the help behind the scenes, so I do all the administrative work and hiring contractors and things like that.
Mr. Clarke, you are here representing Lux Days Spa and Resort, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Tell me about the resort.
I started working at the Lux Days Resort and Spa about 10 years ago when I was in college. I started off as a bellman, and I worked my way up to a management position. Our resort offers anything you would want on a dream vacation. We have gourmet food, state-of-the-art fitness facilities, and we also offer a private view of the beach, as you can see here.
Yes, beautiful. So couples come there to have a relaxing time on the beach, enjoying the restaurants. That's the way it's supposed to work.
Yes, Your Honor. We have thousands of guests annually, repeat guests, because they love what we have, and we do our best to keep them coming back.
So what happened?
That morning, I woke up and, you know, I went and got a little mani-pedi, a little alone time for myself while I let my husband sleep. And I kind of signed us up for a little couples massage. He's hard on himself, so, you know, I decided, you know, let's get some massages. So then we went and had some lunch, and we're from the Midwest, so we don't have many beaches. So they do have beautiful views, so we walked along the beach and just reminiscing about our 10 years together. Suddenly, it just became a little bit more cooler, so my husband suggested, honey, maybe we should just gather our things. Then suddenly, a gust of wind started coming our way.
Well, I'll tell you, now, I'm gonna have to jump in there because this is the part that got me a little upset. Now,
all right.
I know we can't control the wind, we can't control what's going on with it, but as we were going back, I saw, as the gust picked up, an umbrella coming through. Umbrella was coming at my wife like a missile.
Like the umbrellas that you sit under when you're trying to tan again?
Yes, sir. The big beach umbrella with all the metal and a nylon and all that stuff there.
Like this umbrella in the courtroom?
Exactly like that one right there, Your Honor.
Okay.
All right, now I saw that coming at my wife.
It was airborne.
It was airborne. It was coming like a missile. Okay. Now my thing, naturally, first of all, I'm a man. This is my woman. I'm gonna protect my woman. So I jumped in front of her, making sure it did not hit her. She's gorgeous. I'm not gonna let anything hurt this woman. All right. So I jumped in front of it and I got hit in my back left side here. Now, Your Honor, I was a very good amateur boxer.
Yes, sir.
12-1 record, never been knocked down. I never got hit as hard as I did when that umbrella hit me in my side.
So this umbrella comes out of the sand, and it's airborne like a javelin.
It's airborne, Your Honor. It came at her like it was just targeting her. It's like it was a direct missile for her.
It knocked him out so hard, Your Honor, that he couldn't even breathe. And the next thing that I seen was like his face was bleeding, and I didn't know where it was coming from. And although I am in the medical field, I was trying to tend to him and also calm my own nerves. It felt like it took hours for someone to come help us, Your Honor.
Did you realize at that time that you were badly injured?
Not as bad as I eventually found out, Your Honor. I mean, I know I got hit in the backside. I didn't know the extensiveness of the damage until later. I just knew I was hurt.
Mr. Clarke, how did you come to know that something bad had happened?
Well, first and foremost, the weather earlier in the day was perfect. It was just fine, like they said. But I had my security staff monitor the forecast 24/7.
Okay.
And they told me that inclement weather and a possible storm was approaching. So I told all my staff to make sure all of the guests go inside and get off of the beach, just because, you know, we don't know what's going to happen in a storm.
What time was that, sir?
In the morning.
In the morning. So why didn't you guys warn us early?
Miss Rathmell, I appreciate that. And those are appropriate questions, but they kind of come from me.
Sorry, Your
Okay?
Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. So why didn't you tell the guests earlier?
We knew that a storm was possibly coming, but we weren't for certain. But once we were certain that it was coming our way and that could be severe, that's when we decided to, you know, get all the guests off the beach, have them gather their things. I had one of my employees speak to the Rathmells. The Rathmells said they would leave.
No.
That is
and
not
they never
true.
did. I actually have
It's a storm, of course it's going to be
I have
windy.
security footage of the weather from the incident.
Okay.
And the bottom line, that's not our fault. You know, it's nature.
So this is security footage from that day.
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. and Mrs. Rathmell, the wind was blowing like that?
Well, Your Honor, by the time it got to that point, we were already at our location picking our stuff up. It wasn't that hard at first. When it got to that point, we were moving our stuff and going in towards the inside. You know, there was no sense of urgency from the message telling everybody to move in.
So with winds like this, it picked that umbrella up and sent it airborne. It was going to impale your wife. That's why you stepped in the way.
It was going to hit
kind of like a sail, Your Honor. If you imagine a sail in the wind,
right.
This is
that
not our
hard.
This is not our fault, Your Honor. It was the wind.
How could this not be your fault?
It was coming.
These are your umbrellas, right?
Yeah, these are our umbrellas, but we told all guests to get off the beach. They refused to leave. Everyone else was going. They were the only ones who stayed.
Did y'all get that warning? That is, you need to get up and leave now.
Your Honor, they came and kindly told us to leave softly. There was no sense of urgency in anybody's voice.
My employees don't yell. We're going to be
hold
polite.
up, sir.
Y'all, when you look at this video, you got to understand, those are very, very strong winds. Everybody can see that, right?
Well, Judge, we're from the Midwest, so winds they're common to us. But there have been reports all over the news that other resorts have gone through this with beaches and they're having to secure their equipment. So they're such experts on the wind and the rain. Shouldn't they be experts at what's happening at other resorts?
Now, you submitted this video to the court. Is that how the wind was blowing out there that day?
Exactly, Your Honor. They should have secured those umbrellas. You see how hard those winds are going and you see the umbrellas flying? That thing was like a 2x4.
Those things are moving fast, sir. You just doesn't seem the same on TV. In person, those things are moving fast.
That's nothing.
This is another resort where the umbrellas had a mind of their own.
Correct. And it was all over the news.
Had they been secure, sir, they wouldn't be flying around like that.
So they may not be able to secure everything. You would think that
Your
these
Honor,
folks
I
were
had my
able to do that.
employees securing the umbrellas as we were escorting guests off
Mr.
the
Clarke,
beach.
that's a dangerous situation. A lot of people could have been killed out there. You talked about this umbrella nearly impaling you, and I see you've hurt your neck. Tell me about your injuries.
Well, sir, at the backside, I have 2 broken ribs, all right? A punctured lung. Of course, you should see the bruising. I can show you the bruising as well, sir, if you have it. I have my neck, I had whiplash, and of course, I got a gash to this beautiful face, which my wife still loves. But
I see you're asking this court to give you $40,000 for your past medicals and $5,000 for your future medicals. Now, the biggest number you're seeking is $200,000 for pain and suffering.
Yes,
Tell me
sir.
about that. That's a lot of money.
Well, sir, I tell you, right now, again, I'm a construction owner. All right, so I do a lot of heavy lifting. I work with my men. I don't just give them direction. I'm there with them. I also have children and a wife that I want to love and hug. We have a very active lifestyle. I have a hard time raising my arm. I have a hard time breathing. Well, you got to let it heal, but it costs money.
Yes, sir.
It costs money to run a business, it costs money to have a family, and it costs money for those medical expenses. Can I give you a good look at it, sir?
Now, this is where the umbrella actually hit you.
Yes, sir. I tell you, I've never been hit like this before.
Wow.
So, Your Honor, this is day
Okay.
2 at the resort. Not
Yes.
to mention the fact that we had to cut our vacation short and we were in the hospital the whole time.
Mr. Clarke, this isn't how this is supposed to turn out. This could have been a death case.
Oh, it definitely could have been deadly. And it's very unfortunate that, Mr. Rathmell got injured, but we can't control the weather or how fast it comes. So we have systems and protocols put in place for inclement weather.
It reads what to do 30 minutes before storm arrives. Number 1, notify all guests that a storm is coming. Y'all did that.
With the text message.
Number 2, any guest on the beach must leave immediately until the weather clears and announcement is made. Number 3 is secure all beach furniture in nearby storage. That's what you all were trying to do as you asked people to get off the beach. Really, all 3 of those things ought to be happening.
Correct.
Which it sounds like what you all tried to do.
Yes, we did the first 2. We were also doing the third.
But Mr. Clarke, you understand that had you secured this umbrella,
At 9.
it never would have impaled Mr. Rathmell, right?
I understand
right.
that, but
That's right.
either way, we were securing the umbrellas, but we also sent them a text message as well at 1:30.
Well,
Your
you
Honor,
submitted that to the
text-
court.
Closed.
Let's take a look at it. It reads, attention all guests, please be advised that we are expecting high winds today. Listen for alerts from our resort staff for your safety. We hope you continue to enjoy your stay at Lux Days. That's what you sent to all guests.
Does
Yes,
that
Your Honor.
sound
Did
urgent?
you all get that text message?
We did not get it, first of all, sir, because we left our phones and everything in our room. We didn't have our...
It's
we wanted to be
2019. Who leaves their phone in their room?
Well, who takes...
Listen, it's a getaway.
It's a resort. It was a
Yeah.
it was a loving getaway. We wanted to be disconnected from everybody but each other.
We were
So
unplugged, Your Honor.
Now, you brought one of your staff with you, Mr. Doug Jenkins. All right, Mr. Jenkins, if you would rise and go to the podium, what is your role in this whole story?
So I was working at the resort that day, and we had been informed that morning that there was potential of inclement weather later that day.
exactly.
And there was a warning text sent out to all of our patrons to be alert and to
Again
be
with the
aware.
text.
Exactly.
So, however, when we noticed that weather was starting to pick up, the winds were starting to get a little bit higher, that's when we officially closed the beach down. At around 1:30, we sent out another message letting all of our patrons know the facility was shut down, they needed to move inside for their safety.
So there were 2 warnings sent, written warnings?
2 official written warnings and then 1 verbal warning, because I ran into the Rathmells on the beach.
You remember
did.
this?
Yes, sir, very specifically.
did.
He did.
So what happened?
I told them that the weather was picking up and that for their safety, they needed to vacate the area and the beach was closed. They
Which is
refused.
what we were starting to do.
So do
That's
you
a
all
lie.
remember that conversation?
Well, I do. His message they had no sense of urgency whatsoever.
Your Honor, I train my staff to be polite. We're not going to yell at anybody or drag anybody inside. All we can do is warn them.
So, Your Honor, it has nothing to do about being polite.
We'll do this. Say it to me the way you said it to them.
I said, the weather is expected to get worse. The beach is closed temporarily. We will let you know if it reopens, but for now, we need you to gather your belongings and head inside for your safety.
Now,
Not at all.
what makes it more urgent than that? Now, y'all,
Your
one of
Honor.
the things that I learned in law school is common sense never leaves the courtroom.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay? Common sense kind of tells you when the wind is blowing like that, you need to get up and get.
That's what we were doing. That's what we were doing. At the end of the day, Your Honor, they were not prepared for this storm in the morning time. So let's say 15 minutes before a storm hits. You never know when a storm is going to hit. Why didn't they prepare early that morning?
Or maybe you guys should have been inside.
Mr. Jenkins, thank you, sir.
Like I said, Your Honor, he wants us to stay inside because of a possibility of a storm.
And we were in the process of going inside.
We can't be held liable. If we tell you to leave with weather like this and you want to stay outside because you're from the
They
Midwest
did not
and
secure
love
their
rain,
equipment on
then that's
time,
their
Your
business.
Honor.
Your gear should have been locked down in the first place.
The gear was locked down
What
and
if
you
there
should
was
have
a
been
kid
inside.
out there?
Right.
I think I've heard what I need to hear. I'm ready to render my decision. Folks, in every personal injury case, the plaintiff has to prove that the defendant was wrong and that the defendant's wrong caused your harm. Your harm is undisputed, so that stands. What you must prove is that the resort did something wrong that caused these injuries. Here you all have put up evidence with videos showing blowing umbrellas. You've shown that you were trying to get out and this umbrella came in the air and nearly impaled you. You believe that the resort should have warned you with more passion, and they should have secured those umbrellas so you'd have a safe opportunity to get off the beach. Mr. Clarke, on behalf of the resort, you've put up a vigorous defense. You believe had they heeded your instruction, your warning by Mr. Jenkins to get off the beach, Mr. Rathmell would have never been injured.
Yes, Your Honor.
The three tentacles of the law that touch this case, one is act of God. No one can anticipate certain weather events, certain things happening. It's not like God threw the umbrella at you, but these winds kicked up, it sounds like somewhat unexpectedly, and sent this umbrella flying. In a courtroom, an act of God is no one's fault. The second legal principle is personal responsibility, and that is when you're given a warning, you gotta heed that warning. Personal responsibility is important even when you're trying to protect someone else. And that is the third tentacle of the law. Mr. Rathmell, when you tried to protect your wife, that is a very, very noble thing to do. Under the law, though, you have now assumed the responsibility of harm. That is the biggest legal principle that presides here. You have been warned, you were supposed to get off the beach, you stepped in the way and you were hurt instead of your wife. And despite your injuries, I must find in favor of Lux Days Resort and Spa and against you. That is my final verdict, and this matter is adjourned.
Thank you, Your Honor.